Energy gets all the headlines, but there's another vital resource quietly underpinning our nation's growth, and that is water. I'm Belinda Coates, and this is The Connector. Today on The Connector, I am joined by Nicole Scurrah, founder of Create Advisory, to explore how Australia can innovate, invest and forge partnerships to secure sustainable and equitable access to water, and what lessons can be learnt from the UK and global markets. Nicole, welcome to the show. So great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Nicole, water is essential to our nation's growth, yet it rarely gets the attention it deserves. Can you start by outlining the scale of Australia's water infrastructure challenge?
Sure. I think the interesting fact about Australia's water infrastructure is how much of it we actually have. So if there were this many train or tram lines laid out there, everyone would know about it. But to give you an idea, the circumference of the Earth is 40,000 kilometres, and in Australia we have 260,000 kilometres of pipes. So 6 times more than around the world, but
that's a lot of pipes.
It's a lot of pipes, and a lot of them were laid a long time ago. As a matter of fact, 90% of them are actually entering their end of life. In the next 20 years, 90% will need to be replaced or relined, and so there's a big task to do just to keep what we have. But the bigger task, I think, that no one is really that conscious of when you walk down the street and no one's talking about is what we need for new. So, you know, we're talking a lot about housing and a lot about transport. But if in the context of the housing challenge that we have in front of us in Australia, we need 1.2 million more houses in the next 5 years is the target. Every person in a house takes around about 200 litres of water per person per day, 2.5 people in the average house in Australia. We need a lot more water, and we need to store it, we need to move it, and in some cases we need to make it, so desalination plants. So yes, everyone's talking about energy, but I think the hidden sleeper out there for an infrastructure class is actually water.
And Nicole, this is really confronting to hear. So you're saying that 260,000 kilometres of pipes, with nearly 90% of these pipes needing to be replaced in the next 2 decades, which we're looking at 5 to 45 billion per year, year on year, to replace these pipes.
In total, 5 to 45 billion over that to replace what we've got now.
Over that period.
Yeah.
And then what are we looking at to invest in new water infrastructure to keep up with, as you say, the $1.5 million homes and all of the other energy infrastructure that we're trying to keep up with?
Yeah, well, no one's actually done like precisely the amount of work, but we're talking in tens of billions of dollars. I think the most interesting thing that has happened recently is, for the first time in New South Wales history, there is more capital being invested in water infrastructure than there is capital being spent on hospitals and health infrastructure. Now, there's still a lot of many billions of dollars, but, you know, $18 billion being spent on water infrastructure in New South Wales alone in the next 4 years gives you some idea of the scale of the challenge that lies ahead of us, because the past 50 years, we haven't had to worry about the amount of water that's been needed for data centres. Now, you know, all your kids are on their phone non-stop getting their news from Kim Kardashian. But, you know, the reality is all of that is going to require a lot of water. Data centres aren't just energy hungry, they're water hungry. So it's not just about the housing, it's about the data centres. And that's before you even start on new industries such as, you know, the Northwest Minerals Province and the minerals that are needed to make phones to start with. So, you know, I think that the sexiest asset class out there is water, but it's...
Well, it certainly sounds it, if New South Wales spending $18 billion at the moment on water, but are we keeping up? Are we spending enough to keep up with the demand?
No, I don't. I think that it's not just the great new asset class, but I think it's sort of the quiet sleeper out there, because I don't think there's great avenues and understanding into how the private sector in particular can invest in water. I don't think we've been great innovators. We sort of worry about building a desalination plant when there's a drought. We don't worry about planning ahead. That's not unusual. We sort of build it as we need it. But I think the demand is ramping up such now that we have to build new demand and replace what is there, that the need is there and it's overwhelming.
And as we're seeing, there's continued investment in data centres in Australia, and they're very hungry for water. I think you and I were looking it up before, and in 2023, Google, I think, used 16 billion litres of water or something like that. So that's only increasing.
Yeah.
What about with the housing delivery? How can cities in Australia and the UK and other places, how can cities balance infill development with the pressures it places on ageing water networks? How can we keep up? How can we do both at the same time?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, but I think why we're seeing, particularly on the East Coast, all of the governments put the majority of their effort in building in infill suburbs rather than greenfield suburbs, is because it's cheaper to build the capacity. Like, it's more efficient to build the capacity when you're moving the water over a smaller distance, because going back to the energy challenge, it's as expensive to move, water as it is concrete. So the smaller the distance you actually have to pump water, the more efficient it is to service those homes. So that's why there's been a lot of effort saying we've got to go dense, not out. It's not going to be cheap no matter where you build it, but I would argue that maybe there's some efficiencies to be had. But, this is why I'm saying that I still think there's room for innovation in water, because we are a place that only normally makes the investment when we need it, but we've just got to be a little bit smarter about it, I think.
Well, the need's definitely there, and your research shows that major investment in water infrastructure can unlock trillions in job creation, as well as support the housing targets.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
If we invest the money so that it is there, so that we can build more data centres or foundries, as you introduced me to some foundry builders recently, or people that are interested in bringing a data foundry to Australia. If we make the investment, we will drive productivity gains through data centres, but we will drive new industry, because we'll have water ready for those new industries to be able to use, and that really matters. It matters for where the flow-on investments get made also. No one will come when they can't get access to water.
So here's the hot question for you. Where is this money going to come from? Our super funds are worth $4 trillion. Is it going to come from our own super funds, or are we looking elsewhere?
Oh, I hope both. I think all of the investors that are out there are interested in investing in water assets, but we haven't typically used or lent on private investment to deliver water assets. It doesn't mean that we can't. It just means that we have to have a new way of thinking about it. And certainly, as the demands for other things like health that have been typically funded by our state governments and federal governments, we should be able to access those pools of funds. They're enormous. I want my super to go to water. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think I want mine too as well now.
See, so I say why not more than why. Why wouldn't we let Australian super funds? But why also wouldn't we let other companies come to Australia and invest in these assets?
I think we're old enough to remember the rule that we had to shower with a friend when we were running out of water. So we don't want those days back, do we?
Or shower with a bucket and then use it for your car. That's the other famous one. So
just thinking about some of the challenges in the UK too, with their ageing networks and rising demands, do you see opportunities for Australian expertise to be exported to the UK, or even for investment partnerships to flow each way?
Oh, absolutely. I think particularly with resources that are scarce like water, I think we should share and we should learn, and we should share and learn not just the advancements in technology, but I think we should share and we should learn how we can make the investments more savvy. We all benefit from that.
Definitely. And, on the show we talk a lot about partnerships and how important they are, and everyone knows that I have a little soft spot for PPPs, or public-private partnerships, and they're called different things in different regions for different, but they're all the same really. But with the rise of public-private partnerships in both Australia and the UK, do you think we might see Creative Advisory expanding internationally?
Oh, look, Belinda.
Will we see you in London? Wouldn't it be great?
Wouldn't it be great? But, I think there's great opportunities here in Australia, and I think part of our role, across the team many of our team have worked in London, Transport for London, and a few other places. Our newest employees actually just joined us from the UK, so we're stealing economists from there. But all jokes aside, it goes back to that, the opportunity. I do think there's opportunities. There's been PPPs in water infrastructure here before. There needs to be again. All of these things go through cycles where PPPs are popular for, 10 years ago and then get rebirthed, and then next year it'll be in alliance contracts, and then they'll go off the boil. But I think when we're attracting capital to Australia, we should think about, well, how can we help those companies come here and realise the availability of assets to invest in? And in reverse, anytime there's anything we can learn from companies that are doing it well overseas, and I think we have to have more of that sharing of ideas, particularly in those places that have done things not as well as Australia, and I think there's plenty of opportunities for Australia to learn from countries that have done things better than us, and keep our minds open to how that might work and how we can share ideas.
So how do we get water infrastructure to the top of the agenda?
Oh, I think it's there. When it really rises, pardon the pun, is when there's a drought. I think that when dams start to get empty and reservoirs get empty, we panic. But by that stage, we're buying everything in an emergency. And we all know that generally scarcity creates cost increases. So I'm a big one for do it now. We know the need and the demand is coming. And if we don't do it now, we're actually going to miss out on those new industries that we referred to earlier, like the foundries and like the new minerals. So I think we should do it while we're not in an emergency, but there's always other places to put your money, I suppose.
Well, it's definitely not been a dry argument with you today. So thank you so much for coming in and seeing us and telling us all about the water infrastructure concerns in Australia. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
This program has been brought to you by Harper. This is Ticker, and we'll be right back.